Good evening, YouTubers. Welcome back into another edition of Astros Recap. For the Offseason report, David Artis here. Once again, here to break things down. It's been a while, so it's been about 3 months. I think my last podcast uploaded on, say, November 9th, I want to say. So it's been almost 3 months. A few things before I get into what I want to talk about today. One is this will sort of be my podcast spot. Now, a few of my previous videos were in this room. This is sort of our guest room, I guess, in the house, so it's not my bedroom anymore. But I like sort of the setup I got here. So pretty plain, just white walls, white ceiling. There's one thing over here, and this is like a Coca-Cola room. It's all Coca-Cola stuff, but that's a like Coca-Cola plaque or something. I don't know. But that's the only thing you see in the background right now. But this is where I plan to do most of my podcasts. Also, we have people actually outside in the back here working on the deck. So if you hear noise in the background, like they're drilling and screwing things, they might be finishing up here because it's almost sundown here. So we'll see. But if you hear something in the background that sounds like a drill or they're screwing in, screws, whatever, just know that's back. I'm like right outside, just on the second story here. So yeah. Anyway, it's been a while, so a lot to talk about. Obviously, a lot of this stuff I talk about won't be breaking news because it's just it's not breaking news. But I will talk about a few things. Obviously, when I finished my last podcast, it was about a week after the World Series ended, so I was sort of breaking down that, but more so talking about what's coming up this offseason, what the Astros need, what the team might be looking like. So I talked about a lot of that. As for now, one thing I did not bring up, which, wasn't even thought of at the time, was the lockout, which started December 2nd. So, and, the most recent news I can give you in terms of the lockout is baseball, since December 2nd when the lockout started, it's been sort of out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people because there's nothing that can really happen in terms of trades, free agent signings, acquisitions, just baseball news in general. Only news you get is where negotiations are at to sort of come to an agreement. And for a while there was no news on it whatsoever. Finally, this previous Monday, today's Friday, it's March 4th, like I mentioned, 6:13 p.m. Just to give you a quick date and time there. This previous Monday sort of was the deadline day. If they didn't get a deal done by Monday, they'd have to start canceling games. So obviously they've canceled the first two series. It's kind of weird because Monday night, when I was finally trying to keep up with the negotiations or where we were at for the first time in months, I turned on MLB Network and I was listening to the updates and where people were, sort of where we were at. There's a lot of different topics to cover when it comes to the negotiations. I'm not going to get into all those just because, two reasons. One, frankly, I don't know them all. Two, if I spoke on them, I wouldn't be able to give you sort of an accurate update. So, but bottom line is, it looked like a deal was close Monday night as they worked into about 2 a.m. They extended the deadline till Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. But by Monday night, sort of going to bed that night, I felt confident that a deal was going to be in place. And then it fell apart Tuesday, and I guess things were reported incorrectly, or we just got our hopes up, and yeah. Anyway, so yes, the first two series are canceled as of now. As I think about things, obviously I hope that they can get a deal done sooner rather than later, but they're going to continue to cancel games, and obviously it's painful when, it's baseball season, and April comes around and, you're excited about the start. It's just not happening. Like the COVID year, 2020. I mean, we were 4 months without baseball. And yeah, that was kind of painful to not really have a whole lot to do in those times. So, yeah. But yeah, so lockout still sort of something that's going on, and we'll just have to wait and see. Um, but yeah, we just hope and pray that a deal gets settled sooner rather than later. But we will not have a 162 game season. I can tell you that that's set in stone. As far as the Astros, as I switch gears here, um, Justin Verlander has signed 2 years with the Astros, so 25 million, 50 million over 2 years. So yeah, 25K a year. My thoughts on Verlander? Well, we needed a pitcher. We needed an ace. I have no idea what Verlander is now that he's 38, 39, and he's off Tommy John. I've really no idea what to expect. Best hopes is he picks up right where he left off, basically before he got hurt, which is still an ace, still a stud in the rotation. So think about him, obviously. Um, Fully recovered. I mean, again, when it goes to baseball news and players and whether there's injury, recovery, acquisitions, free agents, injuries, recovering, spring training, just everything going on. None of that is talked about because nothing's going on. So, but as far as I know, Justin Verlander, obviously, we thought there was a chance he'd pick a pitch for us, deep in October. It was not the case, but obviously he's healed. But Tommy John's it's a serious surgery, especially for pitchers. So I don't know what to expect. You're going to hope that he turns right back into the guy he was. It's interesting to point out Brent Strom is no longer with the Astros. I think I did bring that up last podcast. But again, 3 months ago, it's hard to, I did sort of look at the podcast to see, try to pick up right where I left off after 3 months. So, yeah. But we're going to hope Verlander is who he was. So, but I don't know. I really don't. Obviously, Lance McCullers is there. We'll see what Framber Valdez is, because Framber Valdez was the ace in 2020. He got hurt in 2021, like the very first spring training game. Came back in June and was lights out, pitching exactly, picked up right where he left off in 2020. And then they had the sort of crackdown on the substance policy for pitchers. And since that point forward, he was very inconsistent and frankly just not very good. Been told he used sunscreen. That was sort of his substance that he couldn't use anymore. So I don't know. But he'll be in the rotation. Obviously, Lance McCullers, Justin Verlander. Think about some other guys like Jake Odorizzi's still with the team. I can't imagine he's in their plans to pitch starting wise. I picture him more so in the bullpen at this point. But you look at people like Christian Javier, Jose Urquidy. Those were two. Luis Garcia. Javier pitched most of last year out of the bullpen, but they could use him as a start if they wanted. Jose Urquidy just needs to stay healthy, frankly. And they still like Luis Garcia. So, but after you get past Verlander, McCullers, and Valdez, you're probably looking 4 or 5. I would imagine Luis Garcia is in there in the 4th or 5th spot. But they have options. I mean, you could use, you could go with Christian Javier if you wanted to. Or you could go with Jose Urquidy. I don't think Odorizzi's a tough one. I know he wants to pitch. I know he wants to be a starter. I'm not opposed to it, to be honest with you. I don't think Odorizzi's terrible. I think that, obviously last year signing him late and then ramping himself back up, and then he dealt with injuries twice. It seemed like he could never sort of get on track last year for Odorizzi. It just felt like, but they have options pitching-wise. But, yeah, I'll just leave it with the 3. I think that, it's pretty obvious. Verlander and McCullers obviously every year gets hurt, so we'll just wait, and that's inevitable at this point. So we'll just wait, and we know that he'll be injured at some point. So, but Valdez, yes, Valdez will be in the mix. I think I'm missing somebody because I feel like they have 7 or 8 starters that I just can't come up with off the top of my head. But yeah. obviously, Martin Maldonado's back. Like the guy. Not so much last year. I mean, when you hit 140, that's a problem. He's signed through next year. They did do that last year. They extended him one more year, so he's going to get the opportunities, obviously. Jason Castro, I think, is still with the Astros. I thought that was a one-year deal and they signed him. I could be wrong. But as far as I know, he's still with the Astros, unless I'm told otherwise, and I haven't heard anything. So, but if Mart just hit 200. Can you just do that? Um, if not, I want to see Jason Castro get more playing time. And I know sort of counterpoint is, well, the pitchers love pitching to Maldonado. Yeah, that's fine. That's all good and well. But let's not sit here and act like they hate pitching to Jason Castro. So, yes, Martin, you hit me 200. You can be our everyday catcher. If you don't, and you put up the puke season offensively you did last year, I'd like to see Jason Castro a whole lot more. Moving forward, backtrack real quick. Relievers. Big a reliever move they made. Not really big, but an acquisition for the lockout here. Hector Neris. Pitcher I'm not very familiar with in terms of numbers and how good he is. Only thing I know is he pitched for the Phillies, and he was their closer. I don't know if he was their closer last year, but he's got closing experience. I talked to one Phillies fan, I think, at the ballpark a while back, asked him his opinions on Hector Neris, and he said he's inconsistent, and that's one thing I do not like to hear when it comes to bullpen pitchers. I hate inconsistency, especially bullpen pitchers. So, I don't know. They lost Kendall Graveman. Graveman went to the White Sox, signed a 2-3 year deal there, so Graveman's gone. You still have Ryan Stanek. You still have Phil Maton. Brooks Raley went to the Rays. Thank God he's done with the Astros. I cannot stand Brooks Raley. I also can't stand Blake Taylor, to be quite honest with you, either. And Taylor's still here. Brian Abreu was a complete mess for the majority of the year last year. I just go and he had a few decent outings in April, and then he fell off a cliff and never was the same. Obviously, Ryan Presley's still the closer. That's completely. I'm good with that. We'll see how things shake out, but you'll have Neris and sort of Stanek, and we'll see with Phil Maton if he can. I like Phil Maton. I want him to pitch well. I want him to be our eighth inning guy. The question is, can we get Phil Maton the playoff version? Because he wasn't very good in the regular season when they acquired him at the deadline, and he was very shaky in the regular season, but very good in the postseason. So if we can get that Phil Maton, I'm cool with him. I also like his demeanor. I like his very serious sort of persona, so to speak, here when he's out there on the mound. I love it. I love it. Baseball's war. When you're out there, have your game face on. Let's go. Let's get after it. I love that. So, yes, I do have big plans, and I want Maton to pitch well. And I want him to be a part, and I want him to, be a part of our back end of the bullpen, looking at here. Just reading a quick text. But, back to the bullpen, Hector Neris was the big one, and then losing Kendall Graveman. Other than that, losing, Brooks Raley to Tampa Bay. They were both free agents. Nobody wanted Raley here anyway to begin with, so we'll wait and see. Obviously, I'm forgetting a few people here and there, but the main ones I sort of covered. Talked about Maldonado, Castro, there on the plate. Yuli Gurriel obviously locked in at first base for another year. Altuve still on his deal at second base. Shortstop, big question mark. I think with Carlos Correa here, a few things. I've pretty much written him off as an Astro, right? Think about it a little bit more here. And I think about a lot of the teams, haven't talked about this, that needed shortstops sort of got their shortstops. Like Correa's still a free agent. And obviously no deals or anything can really be talked about. They might be having conversations behind closed doors, but nothing can be public at this point just because baseball is in a lockout. So think about it like the Tigers, for instance. went out and got Javier Baez, so they got their shortstop. The Rangers got Marcus Semien, and they doubled down and got Corey Seager. So they've got their infielders. Obviously, the Yankees are still team. I don't know how serious the Yankees are, though. I feel like the Yankees would have made a move to get him at this point. But I don't know how serious they are about a shortstop. I mean, you have Gleyber Torres. How good is he? I really don't know. Um, but we'll see how things shake out there. I'm trying to think. I still think the Yankees are probably the front runner once this lockout gets taken care of. The Cubs are another team. Does Correa really play with the Cubs? I wouldn't think so, but obviously money outweighs every other scenario, I guess. So if the Cubs are going to pay him $300 million, he'd probably take it, and he probably wouldn't mind losing, 100 games for the next few years as they rebuild. At the end of the day, money is going to outweigh every other, sort of scenario. So, but the Nationals are another team who are also sort of rebuilding in the like the Nationals and Cubs are the two teams that just dumped everybody at the deadline, and went all out and just said we're just going to tear this whole thing down. But Juan Soto, I think, got offered a huge deal, which he declined. I think he declined it. They have a lot of cap space along with the Cubs, so if they're trying to bring fans into the ballpark, signing a guy like Correa might do that, but they're not going to be good teams. So, but at this point, I'd still say the Yankees are probably the front runner to get Correa. But again, will the Astros try hard to sign Correa? I mean, like I said, the front runners before all this happened was the Rangers and was the Tigers. And now that those sort of done, they've got their guys. Correa's still out there. He might come back to the... I don't even want to say it because I don't believe it'll happen. But if I was 99.9% sure he was gone 3 months ago, I'd probably say about 95% sure at this point, which is still, basically a foregone conclusion. But, yeah, a few of the teams filled their spots with the guys, not Correa. We'll see. I think Correa and Chris Bryant are like the two big free agents out there that are sort of unemployed at this point. So, sort of my breakdown for you. I want to get into a few other things. If I try to dive into this whole lockout issue thing here, just trying to look at how long. Okay, there we go. 18 minutes. Yeah. A lot of issues. Let me give you what I know. One of the big things about this negotiation with the sort of the owners and the players, postseason, extending it, adding more teams. Like I heard today, the latest thing I heard is 14-team playoff. I don't know. I usually don't like the whole, like basketball's a joke. The NBA, their playoff, the way they do their playoffs is a complete joke. It takes 2 months. You have more than half the league make it. And the playoffs take 2 months, which is just ridiculous. And it might be okay if their series were short. Like every series is a 7-game sort of series. Like at least in baseball, even in 2020 when we had 14 teams make it, you had the wildcard round, which is a 3-game set. Then you went to your NLDS 5-game set. At least that speeds things along to make games more interesting. You have a 7-game series. It just doesn't. Basketball has the whole thing messed up. Baseball, if they want to extend it, that's okay. But just condense the series. Make it 3 games. Make it 5 games. Keep it where it's at. But yeah, that's one of the things. They talked about 12 teams. Now I've heard 14. So I know if a deal gets done that the playoffs will be expanded. We'll have more teams. That's a foregone conclusion. Obviously, minimum salary for players. The players want like $700,000. Owners don't want to go that high. There was also talk, this wasn't one of the main points I heard recently, about the international players, the pool of players you can sort of choose from. That was one of the negotiation points. Trying to think. talked about minor league options. Some players that go back and forth between the minors and majors only have a certain amount of options. Uh, like Max Scherzer and Andrew Miller, like talking about how we're looking out for the younger players. That's a bunch of BS. Don't give me that. Like they're trying to raise the minimum salary of the Major League Baseball players because they say they're looking out for the young guys. That's just a bunch of BS. It sounds nice and good, but that they don't really care. They care about their own money. Um, but yeah, Rob Manfred's not doing a very good job as the commissioner of Major League Baseball. He was not good in 2020. He's not good right now. If I'm pointing the finger at anybody, I'm pointing at him. He needs to do a better job. You're killing the sport's dying. Major League Baseball right now is dying. After what happened in 2020 and now happening now, you're losing. It's bad. And the more games you have to cancel and the longer this lockout is, the worse it's going to get. So, but again, from December 2nd, excuse me, from December 2nd to now, there's been no news. No news on players. So the only acquisitions the Astros have made, re-signing Justin Verlander and acquiring Hector Neris. No trades, anything else to talk about. Dusty Baker's back. We did explain that last podcast. Again, 3 months ago. And, of course, Brent Strom is out as pitching coach. I think I did bring that up. It'll be interesting to see how things change pitching-wise. But again, the Astros, Trevor Story's still out there. It's an interesting option that at a much cheaper cost. If they don't want to do that, they go Jeremy Pena, who's minor league shortstop, who I think is one of their better prospects, I think. They'll have a few options at short, but it's hard to replace a guy like Correa. So, but we'll wait and see, obviously. So you got starting pitchers, which you have to sort of figure out the configuration there. But they got enough options to definitely go forward. Bullpen looks okay. Shortstop's a big issue. You look out in center field. Obviously, it was sort of platooned after they traded away Miles Straw with sort of the combination of Chas McCormick, Jake Myers, and Jose Siri. So what do they do there? They can go out and sign a guy. Jake Myers will not be ready until like July, which at this point, we might actually start baseball in July. So Myers at this point might not miss any time. It's always I'm trying to think here. Big shortstop, center field, I think is your big sort of. You got Bregman at third. We talked about Altuve, Gurriel. You got Brantley out there on the left. You got your platoon of three different possible options in center, and you have Tucker in right. Alvarez, I think, should be your full-time DH. That's actually another issue. Can't confirm this. I heard this from a coworker a few days ago. Universal DH is also foregone. That will be something that comes into play next year as well. So the expanded playoffs and the universal DH are two things that I'll put on the table as definites when we get a deal settled. Who knows when at this point. But yeah, trying to think here. Any other big moves? Some pitch like Robbie Ray. Who did Robbie Ray go to? Trying to remember. Obviously, Max Scherzer signing a big deal with the Mets. Don't think I talked about that. It's a shorter deal, but he's making the most. Like Garrett Cole signed the largest deal, and he was the highest paid starting pitcher. Now Max Scherzer, who went to the Mets, shorter deal, but making more basically per start. So he's the highest. Max Scherzer's the highest paid pitcher. The Mets are going in, basically. And they signed Lindor. They got Scherzer. Obviously, DeGrom. We'll see what the Mets are. Pete Alonso. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what they are. But they are definitely a team I think that we should keep. We're an American League team. So, so what we worry about is like the Mariners and the A's and teams like that. But just thought I'd throw in the Mets because they had one of the big signings that was Max Scherzer. Um, Obviously, had a cup of tea with the Dodgers there as the Dodgers lost in the NLCS last year. Trying to think, you know, I don't know how long this podcast is going to be. I'm at 25 minutes, so sort of wrap things up there. I wanted to get on. It's been 3 months, and I mentioned coming on in January, but when the lockout hit, baseball was sort of out of sight, out of mind for a while there. So wanted to get on sooner. Thought about it this yesterday, but just to sort of give you an update on where we're at. Lockout, have no idea. We could be months away, but I don't see this thing getting settled sooner rather than later. Not very optimistic about where we're at, so we might be missing uh, an entire month at this point. I can almost, I mean, I don't assume anything, but I can almost rule out games in April. I feel like April games will all be canceled, and we'll, the best case scenario, we'll start the season in May and play, 120 or something along the lines of that. So if you remember when I got on and talked about the virus, I was hoping for 100 games. We only played 60, so and that whole season just didn't feel right. So, but anyway, yeah, I'll wrap things up there. Obviously, give the podcast a like, share it with your friends, all that good stuff there is to do on YouTube. I will be back at some point. I wish I could tell you when. Hopefully, a deal gets settled here within the month or whatever, and I can sort of talk about, how things are going. But I want just an agreement in place just so we can get back to baseball news in terms of where's Correa going? Where's Chris Bryant going? Like, the Astros don't look like a team to make a big splash, but I still like to hear the news of, what teams are getting who and acquiring and trades. And, right about now, spring training would have started. We would be like a weekend and we'd sort of, hear a lot of baseball news, but at this point, nothing to speak of. So, yes, we'll wrap things up there. I'll talk to you hopefully within the month. But yeah, I'll leave things there and we'll see you then.